We'll discuss some Inyane Pesach Sheini. Since on the calendar today it says it's Yud Daled Iyar. It's the 14th of Iyar, which is a month after Pesach, the 14th of Nisan. And we'll discuss the Minchas Chinuch on whether actually there is a Pesach Sheini at all, Bizman Hazeh. So there's a whole discussion in the Gemara and the Poskim regarding what is the nature of the din of Pesach Sheini. The Gemara in the end of Pesachim, the 9th parak, discusses whether Pesach Sheini is a regel b'fnei atzmo. It's an independent holiday, like Pesach Rishon. Pesach Sheini is its own independent entity. Or no, it's Tashlumin l'Rishon. Someone who did not bring Karban on Pesach Rishon, Derech Rechoka, Tameh, whatever the reason, so that person has to bring one on Pesach Sheini. Is it a makeup or is it an independent din? So the Gemara says, how will we figure out my nafkamina? The Gemara gives us the lamdis. What's the nafkamina? What about a ger sheniskayer ben Pesach Rishon or Pesach Sheini? A ger that converts between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini. Is he chayev to bring a karban on Pesach Sheini? Or a katan shehigdio, or someone who is a katan on Pesach Rishon and now is a gadol on Pesach Sheini, is he chayev in bringing a karban? So the Gemara says it depends. According to Rav Nassan, who says it's tashlumin l'rishon, so there's only tashlumin if you're chayev in the first place. Let's say I'm chayev in something, I'm obligated in mincha, and I forget to daven mincha, so I daven a ma'ir of this tashlumin. But if I'm not obligated in something, there's nothing to make up. So therefore, according to Rav Nassan, that Pesach Sheini isn't an independent holiday, it's just a tashlumin. So a ger and a katan does not bring a karban on Pesach Sheini. But according to Rabbi, that it's a regel b'fnei atzmo, it's an independent holiday, so therefore one who is obligated on, one who is a gadol or one who is a Jew on Pesach Sheini, even though they weren't a Jew on Pesach Rishon, or even though they weren't a gadol on Pesach Rishon, according to Rabbi, it's a regel b'fnei atzmo, and they'd be chayev to bring their own karban. So that's the machlokas in the Gemara, the nafkamina, whether a ger sheniskayer or a katan shehigdio. So we passing like Rabbi that it's a regel b'fnei atzmo. There's a third sheet that Nitziv claims the different readings in the Sifri. So Nitziv says he wants to make a split between the two sheetas. That we don't have it in our Gemara, but perhaps you can make a difference between a ger and a katan. That a ger has no shayches to Pesach Sheini. In other words, really you could hold it's tashlumin l'rishon. So if it's tashlumin l'rishon, so a ger has no shayches. Perhaps you could argue, even if it is tashlumin l'rishon, that maybe you could argue a katan is chayev, because maybe a katan becomes chayev achar zman. So he has a din d'Rabbanan, a chinuch of other things, so therefore the Nitziv raises the possibility, or he says that shita that says even within according to regel b'fnei atzmo, you're both chayev. According to, we have it in the Gemara tashlumin, they're both patur, they're both exempt. However, perhaps you could, even within the sheets of tashlumin l'rishon, you could argue there's a difference between a katan and a ger. That at the tchilas he was a katan on Pesach Rishon, but he knew he'd become a gadol later, so therefore he becomes chayiv la'achar zman. Like we have a famous machlokes between the Maharam Rittenberg and the Rush regarding a katan. We know that in general there's a machlokes Rishon and Machronim on whether there's chinuch and avelos or not. We paskin no, but there is no chinuch by avelos. However, a katan rips kriya because, as the Gemara says, kriya l'chud and avelos l'chud. So therefore, there is a din of kriya. So the question is, if someone, a katan, becomes a gadol toch shloshim, in toch shloshim of the avelos, a katan becomes a gadol. So there's a whole discussion. We know there's something called a shmoa krova, and a shmoa rechoka. If you're here within the first 30 days, you're a shemua rechoka, and you have the regular din of avelis. If you have a shemua rechoka, so then there's other halachas. Maybe 1 day, there's a discussion. But there's a whole discussion within that, 30 days from when? 30 days from the kfura, or 30 days from the misa. So in general, we'll see that we're going to go halacha l'divrei hameichel ba'avelis. We're going to be lenient on it. But so that seems to be the issue here. That according to the Maharam, a katan is chayiv because when right now he's a chayiv la'achar zman, he becomes chayiv as a katan, and la'achar zman, he's not chayiv as a katan. But the chiyuv begins right away, and since he becomes whenever he becomes a gadol, he becomes chayiv, and hence katan would be chayiv in avelis, and the rest says no, but since he was patur, so it seems to be a similar issue here in terms of it seems that it's a similar issue in terms of tashlumin, but. So he's saying over here, like a katan, to a katan, maybe you could argue if it is tashlum, he was chayev, and once he becomes a gadol, he's chayev, he's exempt as a katan, but he's chayev la'achar zman. Like there's a Gemara in Shabbos about if a katan becomes a gadol in the middle of Shabbos, so in terms of what you're mechuyev on that. So either way, it's a machlokes in the Gemara between Rabbi and Rav Nassan, whether Pesach Sheini is Tashlumin L'Rishon, or is it a Regel B'fnei Atzmo, and Nafkamina Gershon Iskaya Katan Shehigdil, and it still brings down the third shita, that maybe even within Tashlumin L'Rishon you can make a chiluk between a Katan and a Ger. This issue actually ties into the shaila of a katan shehigdel in the middle of Sfiras HaOmer. So can a katan who's been counting out chinuch, when he becomes chayiv min Torah, can he continue to count? Because you need tamimas. There's a whole discussion. I think the Rambam shita that it's true a ger is pater, but if a katan is pater, but if a katan brought a korban, if he was included in the chabura on Pesach Rishon, he can be exempt from Pesach Sheini. So if that's the case, so one can argue so as a katan's counting beforehand can count for later on. So either way, that's a whole discussion about a katan shehigdil. I guess it would be also someone who converts in the middle of Judaism, in the middle of Sfira, in terms of, they certainly didn't have any tamimas, so perhaps, they can't count with bracha. I guess they could discuss if they were counting before and not, but we see from here a katan's different than a ger. So a katan still might be, has more shaykhs to the mitzvah since he's going to become a gadol. In fact, and that's the issue by, Tashlumin, that we know there's, you have those three shittas. So what about if someone is anus? on Pesach Rishon? Is he chayiv on Pesach Sheini? So some Achronim want to say regarding Tefillah, of your onis on Tefillah, it seems to be a machlokas Prisha and the Taz, seems to be a machlokas Achronim, of whether it is Tashlumin. So Rabbi Chanan says what's to talk about? It's a Mefurish Gemara, he claims. What's the machlokas here, the Taz and the Prisha? It's a mistake. Everyone has to agree that he can, that there is Tashlumin, as we'll see. That's the whole discussion here with Rabbi Chanan we'll get into. So the question is, Bizman Hazeh, we no longer have a Beis HaMikdash. So the Minchas Chinuch raises, the Minchas Chinuch wrote this in different times because there seems to be steerers and he wrote different things. But what if, so you built the Beis HaMikdash before Pesach Sheini, would you bring a carbon on Pesach Sheini? So the Minchas Chinuch claims, well, it's a machlokas Tanoim, machlokas in the Yerushalmi, whether you bring a Pesach Sheini today. However, elsewhere, the Minchas Chinuch writes that's a machlokas in the Yerushalmi, but in another place he writes the Bavli says it's Pashut. That no, there is no chiyuv to say, there is no chiyuv of Pesach Sheini. The Minchas claims Bizman Hazeh that it doesn't exist, Pesach Sheini. Because you think it's not a calendaric, it's not a day on the calendar, it's not the 14th of Iyar. It's, the Gemara says, I think in Daf Pei, Ayin Tes, it's 30 days after Rov Chai Yisrael brings the Karban Pesach Rishon B'Tahara. So if you have Rov Chai Yisrael Tamei or Mia Tahara bring, then there is no din of Pesach Sheini. So the Minchas Chinuch says there's no discussion, there's no chiyuv of Pesach. So even if you build the Beis HaMikdash, there's no chiyuv of Pesach Sheini because Rov Klal Yisrael did not bring the Karban Pesach Rishon B'Tahara. So that's how some say Bizman Hazeh. So Bizman Hazeh, it should come out that everyone should agree there's no Tachanan, meaning the minute Svard is not to say Tachan, age of Tachan is no Tachan is a Zecher to remember, but the Minig Ashkenaz that there is Tachanan because there is no Pesach Sheini. In fact, the embroiders, which follow many Sephardi customs, so the whole issue anyway would be Yudal at Iyar in the afternoon. Chakras wouldn't be the question, it would be on Mincha. Mincha, so this, they follow the Sephardi not to. So perhaps the Bizman Beis HaMikdash Kayim, that would be an issue. So if you hold, so Ashkenaz hold, you say Tachanan. So perhaps they hold it's not the, it's not a din in the rego, it's not a rego b'fnei atzmo, and Sephardi seem to say, there's no tachana, but the Minchas Chinuch points out this whole issue is only on Yudal and Iyar. There's no Pesach Sheini, even when there is, it's only after Chatzos. In fact, that's the whole discussion, because even on Pesach, it's Yudal at Chatzos, it's called Pesach. In other words, there's a Ramah quotes on the Or Zarua about there's no Avelis Achar Chatzos on Erev Pesach. So therefore, if someone's sitting Shiva, so Achar Chatzos, So on Erev Pesach it's mafkia. And Tosfos disagrees and says no, it's not a din. It's not true on Erev Pesach either. But the Or Zarua and the Ramah quotes it, and many people think it's a din all year round. That Erev Chatzos on Erev Shabbos. No, the din is only Erev Pesach, and we seem to go cool in both directions. Like if you're already in Shiva, so then that's it, it's mafkia. But according to Or Zarua, if the kura happened after Chatzos, so it's like a din of Chol Hamoed. You wouldn't start Shiva until after Pesach's over. However, we go with kula, and if a person had a kura after Achar Chatzos on Pesach, we go with kula. We could say the Pesach is mafkia the Shiva. So they point out that this whole issue is only Yidal Iyar after Chatzos, whether we should do it or not. So that's what the Minchas Chinuch discusses in different places. He goes into the issue, what about Bizman Hazeh, if the Beis HaMikdash were built, what would happen? And just to conclude, more of Derech Makshava, that's what they point out, that Pesach Sheini is a person should strive to be a Pesach Sheini Yid. A Pesach Sheini Yid is someone who strives to do things they're not commanded in. Pesach Sheini only came out when the Jewish people went to Moshe, and they said, well, we feel so bad. We missed it. What can we do to make it up? So you have to show a chiba. You have to show you want it. Like we do on the mitzvah of tzitzis. Tzitzis is a conditional mitzvah. You have to wear a four-corner garment. If you're not wearing a four-corner garment, you're not chayiv. So therefore, one would have to go out of their way. We go out of our way and show we want to do extra mitzvahs. And that was the midah of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe was with star. He wanted to enter Eretz Yisrael so he could fulfill the mitzvahs at Tuyas Paris. What's he getting all worked up about? He's not chayiv in them, so what does he need to go? The answer is, he wanted to put himself in a situation where he's chayiv to do all the mitzvahs. That's the yisod of Pesach Sheini, a second chance, and one who it has to come, one needs the ratzon. If you feel bad that you missed something and you want to go ahead and able to make it up. So we'll discuss some inyani Pesach Sheini. So there's a famous Gemara in Pesachim, Sadi Gimel, 9th Perek, regarding what is the nature of the yontif of Pesach Sheini. Rabbi says it's a regel with neyatzon. Whereas the issue is by Pesach Sheini, because not everyone brings the Pesach Sheini. Only those who didn't bring a karban on Pesach Rishon, so they're chayiv on Pesach Sheini. So what exactly is the nature of it? So Rabbi says it's an independent yontif. It's a regel b'fnei atzmo anyway, and Pesach Sheini is treated like a yontif. And Rav Nassan says no, it's tashlumin l'rishon. It's not a regel b'fnei atzmo. For those who missed it, so you have to make it up. So that's the machlokes Rabbi and Rav Nassan, whether it's a regel b'fnei atzmo or it's tashlumin. My nafkamina, what's the practical difference? So the Gemara says a ger shenisgayer or a katan shenolad, not a katan shehigdio. A ger, someone who converts to Judaism in the middle of Pesach and Shavuos, and somebody who becomes bar mitzvahs in the middle of Sfira, and then between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini. So are they chayiv in Pesach Sheini? So if it's regel b'fnei atzmo, so they're chayiv, like Rabbi. And if it's like Rav Nassan, tashlum al Rishon, there's no tashlum because they weren't chayiv. We paskin generally like Rabbi, that it's a regel b'fnei atzmo. But the interesting is the third sheet that the Netziv brings. He thinks that his understanding of Sifri, that even if you hold it's tashlum al Rishon like Rav Nassan, but perhaps anyway, you can make a distinction between a ger shenisgayer and a katan shehigdio. A ger shenisgayer, so he's patur because he had no chiyuv on Pesach Rishon, but a katan had a chiyuv as a midin chinuch midrabanan, so he could be mischayev afterwards. On Pesach Rishon, he was still a Yid, he was still a Jew. In fact, that's what the Netziv others point out, that there's a whole machlokas, famous machlokas, the Maharam Rurenberg and the Rush regarding Katan who becomes a Gadol in the middle of Shiva or Shroshim. Is he Chayev in Avelis? So Maharam Rurenberg says yes, he's Chayev once he becomes a Gadol, and the rest says no. So what's the raya of the Maharam Rurenberg? Is a Gemara that talks about someone who becomes a Gadol in the middle of Shabbos, he becomes Chayiv in Shabbos whatever time it is, whether it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, he becomes Chayiv in that day. So he says the Kenisas Shabbos, that's Mechayiv him in Shabbos Va'achar Zman. But even though he's a Katan at the time, so too by Avelis, he's a Katan at the time, but he's still a Katan, and he's Pater. And the rest says no. Every second is his own Chiyivin. By Avelis, it is the Stimas, by Avelis, it's the Stimas HaGolel, since he was Pater then, so therefore he doesn't have to. So that's within the third Shita of Rabbi, within the third Shita, within Rav Nassan's Shita, that is Tashum and Larishon, you could argue about whether there's actual, whether it applies to a katan or not. That's the whole discussion, as we'll see. And then there's the whole discussion regarding someone who's an anus. Let's say you're an anus. So it's we know there's a machlokas achronim by tefillah. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman says there's no issue here. Everyone agrees that Anas is, because he has a Gemara that says whoever's someone who's Nenas on Pesach Rishon is Chayiv in Pesach Sheini, and no one's Cholik on it. So Rabbi Chanan says, we see even Rav Nassan would agree that you're Chayiv. So we see Anas, everyone's Chayiv. That's a whole discussion, the Achronim, Rabbi Yosef Engel. What's Pshat Onesh Rachmana Patre? Patre from the Onesh or Patre from the Chiyuv? So it's a whole discussion. So he wants to say based on the Tosas and Baba Basra, making the difference between the mitzvah of Pru Ravu and the mitzvah of Veshavas Yisera. Pru Ravu is a mitzvah of an animal makom, it's to promote Judaism. And Shabbos is a general mitzvah, everyone to populate the world to Ve'elem HaChavero. So Rabbi Yosef Engel has a whole shtickle how Onis HaKmana Patre only applies to mitzvahs Ve'elem HaMakom. But Ve'elem HaChavero, which is result-oriented, if you didn't help the person, Ve'elem HaChavero, so then you're not exempt. So either way, that's a whole discussion there in regarding in Lamdis Pesach Sheini. So in fact, there's a famous Minchas Chinuch that claims that Bisman Hazeh there is no Pesach Sheini. The Yerushalmi has a machokas whether if the Beis HaMikdash was built before Pesach Sheini, would you have to bring a carbon on Pesach Sheini? So Gemara seems to have a machokas there. Minchas Chinuch says, what's to discuss? That's the Yerushalmi. The Bavli, we have often a Bavli. But the Bavli tells us that, I think it's the pay or around there, that the only one chayiv in Pesach Sheini, when Pesach Sheini isn't a calendaric day, it's not a day on the calendar, it's only chayiv in 30 days after, or if 30 days after Klal Yisrael, if Rov Klal Yisrael bring the carbon Pesach but Tahara, then there's a mitzvah of Pesach Sheini. If they do a Tmeya or Miyah Petahara, then there is no halacha Pesach Sheini. So the Minchas Chinuch says there's nothing to talk about. There is no Yontif of Pesach Sheini. It doesn't exist today. And that's perhaps the reason the minhag of Bnei Ashkenaz don't say Tachanun. I should say they do say Tachanan on Pesach Sheini because it's a non-issue. The Sfardim do it as a Zecher, so they don't say Tachanan, And the Breuer says an interesting sheet of the Breuer's community that only for Mincha, because that's when we're talking about the Karban Pesach got ready after Chatzos, so by Mincha they went to Tachana. But either way, that's a whole discussion. Different minhagim, whether you say Tachana on Pesach Sheini, but according to the Minchas Chinuch, there's nothing to discuss. There is no Pesach Sheini, because since Rov Chayitza did not bring the Pesach Rishon 30 days earlier, so therefore there's nothing more to discuss.